right, many thanks for staying with us. It's Talking Business, and today we will be looking at housing deficit in Nigeria. So we can proper ways by which the housing deficit in Nigeria can be addressed, and also the economic benefits it will give Nigeria. I've been joined here by a business and economic expert, the person of Emmanuel Eboigbe. Many thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you, blessing.
And it's not alone, there's a lady also. She's a real estate agent. Thank you so much, Dinah, for coming.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Now, housing deficits, Eboigbe, really, what does it mean for a country?
Housing deficit means inadequate supply of livable houses for the population. That's what simply deficit means. It means a shortfall in the number of livable houses that is available to the citizens of the country.
Okay. Now, in Nigeria, the housing deficit is fast rising. It's getting higher. Now, according to the head of Federal Mortgage Bank, he said that the housing deficit in Nigeria is 22 million. There's 22 million housing units, deficit of 20 million housing deficit in Nigeria. So it's really, really high for a population of about 200 million. We're growing.
Yes.
So what are the factors responsible for the rising housing deficit in Nigeria?
Yeah, a number of factors are responsible for that. Basically, any part, because housing is an economic good that you need to pay for to own. So, because about 60% of our population is operating below earning power of $1.25, that's approximately 15,000 naira monthly. So certainly, this group would be unable to access decent housing. So it's not just that the houses are deficit, the earning power is low. Two, the processes for owning a house, procedures for owning a house in Nigeria is equally tedious and a little difficult for certain group of people to be able to access. Beyond that is the fact that because we don't have mortgage financing presently, housing for lots of people is a luxury goods. So decent houses, I mean. So they just get by and unable to access it. So on and on. The reasons why the deficit will remain. People are unable to get decent houses, even though they want to. The economic situation just don't.
Okay, so there's no economic power to purchase houses. Now, you pointed out that it's not as if the houses are not there. They are there, but the power to get these houses, the economic power is not there. Now, Diane, you are someone who's into real estate.
Yes.
Okay. Now, do you think that it would have been possible for some persons to own houses if the prices were not so high? Now, in cities like Port Harcourt, in cities like Enugu, in some cities in Nigeria, Abuja and Lagos, you find that the deficit is even higher, maybe because of the population or the area. And the amount you can get a house in a place like Abuja, Lagos, is very, very high compared to a place like Benin City. So, as someone who's in the field, do you think that sometimes these houses are just overpriced, or it's just a reflection of what it takes to have such a house?
Personally, I think it's just a reflection of what it takes to own a house, because the housing deficit in Nigeria has gone from bad to worse because of the high population. So personally, I think in cities like Lagos, Abuja, Port Harcourt, where we have people who are a bit stable in their income.
Okay.
So I think personally the housing, the money to purchase a house or landed properties, it's actually stable. That is what I think personally.
Okay, now how would you justify that maybe a plot of land that maybe you can get for maybe, let's say, like 10 million naira, and then the same amount you spend in buying cement in Benin, that's the same amount, almost the same amount you spend in buying cement in Lagos, and maybe every other building material. It may even be cheaper. But just because of the location, it's now sold for as high as maybe 50 million naira and sold. Don't you think these houses, I'm asking again, that they are overpriced? I know it's your business.
Yes.
And maybe you may try to hold brief for your colleagues in that sector, but sometimes it doesn't seem to you like these houses are just overpriced because of the population we have in the area, and some persons want to move to that location because it's very busy and maybe it's a business area.
Well, it is what it is. It's the country that we're in. It is been okay. Housing in Benin City is the cost of owning the land in Benin City is different from the cost of owning.
Yes, it's way cheaper.
It's way cheaper. Well, it is what it is.
Okay, so it's the land really that makes the cost go up.
Yes, and what you said, it's a busy, the part where it is busy, like Lagos State.
Okay.
Comparing Lagos State and Benin City, it is the business. Let me correct myself. Lagos State is one of the highest revenue generating states in Nigeria.
Okay.
Benin City, I don't think Benin City is on that list.
Okay.
So Lagos,
so it's the caliber of people you have.
It is the caliber of people, exactly. Imagine
right.
You can't compare Lagos State and Abuja and put Benin in it. Do you understand? Many persons don't exactly know that we have real estate business in Benin City. So putting Benin City on that list, I don't think
I'm just trying to say, for instance,
yes.
Now, because if you say, because you said earlier that it's actually a reflection of what it takes to own a house.
Exactly.
When the cost of building materials may almost be the same with these cities, except for the land itself.
Exactly.
And then you find that the difference in the price of maybe a 2-bedroom flat, for instance, the difference between the rate at which you get it in Benin and Lagos or even Abuja is way high. It's way higher than what you get in Benin. So that was why I asked that.
Okay.
Now let's talk about the federal government's policies, housing policies and schemes, and even state government's schemes. How do you think they're performing?
Yeah, they're not performing badly, excepting that they're performing just like the situation I painted earlier.
Okay.
That if the purchasing power of the populates are, relatively low, there is little or nothing that those policies will do, excepting that you will first need to raise the purchasing power, you will first need to raise the earning power of the people. I also added that, yeah, we've not been able to create a stable mortgage financing pool.
Okay.
That's critical. The much we've been able to do, it's the retail mortgage financing led by the Federal Mortgage Bank, 10% for developers, 6% I think for the retail, is the much we've been able to do, and the pre-qualification for those two is also difficult to meet. Yes, midway, somewhere around 2016 to 17, we were having a refinancing company to get in, to make it easier to be able to access mortgage financing. I think those are, the policies are not performing better than the economy would do, especially for the individual. Having said that, I like to just pop in a little, to add a little to, are the housings, appropriately priced?
Yes, the cost of houses.
I would say yes, they are appropriately priced because they are a reflection of the cost of buying money.
Okay.
Now, two, prices are a reflection of the economic activity of an area.
Okay.
Certainly, she said you can't put Benin in the bracket of Port Harcourt, Lagos, not because they are called Port Harcourt, Lagos, and Abuja. It's because population is a market. Now, simple economics says if there is high demand for a commodity, the price will go up. So the land space in Lagos might be the land space in Benin, but because many of people had moved over to Lagos, then Lagos become a place where people will be needing houses to stay.
More than they would
need in Benin. And because they need more houses in Lagos to stay, the few houses in Lagos would have to sell for much higher than it will sell in Benin. Rent in Lagos will be higher than it will sell in Benin. And just so goes the reasons why prices of houses in those, highly metropolitan cities would be high compared to what it is here. The land might just be the
same size.
The same size, but will cost differently. And that is what happens across the world, not just only Nigeria. New York, for instance, a flat in New York will be 3 times as high as a flat in other cities of the US. Because there are lots of people around that city. So it's
population and economic activity that actually impacts on the price.
Absolutely.
Okay. Now let's talk about the quality of houses. You're the real estate agent. Now, do you think that even though these houses, as you say, are a reflection of the what it takes to own the house, the cost that's put into it, we have quality houses?
Okay. I will use Lagos as an instance. Lagos State basically has quality houses. Believe me, if you drive around, if you're based in Lagos and you drive around, you go around, you see the kind of houses people bring their plans from outside the country. But where we have in Benin, it's an old city. Benin City is an old city. I think it's still developing. It's not like we have it in other states and some already developing states in Nigeria. We do have quality houses in Lagos and all other states, but in Benin City we don't. But that is why the real estate business in Benin City is, it's actually coming up. Would help bring in quality houses in the state. So the quality houses we have over there and the price, then it actually relates, because in Benin City we do not have the room or the revenue or the state or the room to have jobs, because the employment states in Benin City is not as high as we have it over there. So that is why I think people have more traffic over there in other states than Benin. Do you understand? Yeah, so that's, yeah.
Now, apart from the quality of the house being looked at in terms of how big, how magnificent it is, we're also talking about durability. Now, we've also seen in recent times of incidents of houses collapsing. And then, so if a person had invested into that and then the house comes crumbling down, you automatically have to start from scratch. So the quality of the house in terms of durability, do we also see that happen?
Okay, yes, definitely. Like I said, people are getting smarter these days. People are bringing in surveyors, engineers, and house constructors from people are going to schools. People are learning.
So
people are learning things. So yes. So I can't say for the cases where we have houses crumbling down. I can't say because I'm not an engineer and all of that. So in cases where we have all of that, I don't really have much to say, by the way, exactly. But people are bringing in constructors. People are having new structures for houses. So I think 50% we have durable houses. Yes, 50%. Yes.
All right. Now, President Muhammadu Buhari has promised to build 100 million housing units annually to cover the deficit. Although that's not going to cover the deficit because we have 22 million housing deficit in Nigeria. So if 1 million housing units is built annually, for the next 4 years, that means we'll have 4 million housing units. So we still fall short by 18 million. Now, how do you think this gap can be quickly covered, as a reporter says that Nigeria is at the risk of housing crisis? Ebobi.
Yeah, the gap, let me just add that the gap will keep increasing as population increases. So it's not just going to be static 18 million deficit.
It's going to grow beyond.
It's going to grow. But having said that, the questions that immediately comes to mind would be, how are those houses going to be allocated? How are these houses going to be sold? Who is going to finance those houses? Now let's assume that there's an intervention funding coming on housing as is critical to national development, coming from the CBN, or CBN basically. Now the question would be, how would those houses be allocated? Now if you say to federal government staff, the question would be, the last we know is that they've monetized all benefits, like housing benefits and all of that. The question would be falling back to mortgage financing. Do we have major changes coming to mortgage financing? If yes, then it would be easy to allocate those houses, and then of course that is a step in the right direction, that as we're having those houses developed. But beyond that, in meeting the deficit, it won't just be government alone. It would be to strengthen the private sector to be able to come, in full scale into housing financing. What I mean is, you want to do a big scale. Like presently, what we have in Lagos, Abuja, and Port Harcourt is you are only able to fund houses for the high-income earners, and then because like I said earlier, the mortgage financing window is not deep, so you have financing for only 3 years, 5 years max.
Okay.
And that is for a certain income group. That's not fair enough yet. If we really want to handle, mortgage financing, we want to go, beyond just 3 years. We want to go beyond 5 years. I know the cost of fund is a reflection of that. I also know the inflation rate is a reflection of that, and a couple of other economic indices. But having said that, it would be nice to look at the dynamics of construction and allocation of those promised houses. How is it going to be constructed? How is it going to be financed? How is it going to be allocated? What are the changes in policy of monetizing benefits of who are those contributors to? And those are some of the issues that we want to begin to ask. And then how can private sector come in massively to assist mortgage this housing deficit we have in Nigeria presently? Okay.
Now, I want to ask a question that you may consider it as being funny, but does everyone own a house? I know that some persons abroad just want to live in a house maybe for like 2, 3, 4 years, and after that, they want to relocate elsewhere to another place. Some persons don't even like the idea of buying a house. They just want to be in that house for quite a while, and by the time they get tired of it, they just move to another location. Now, if we have that same culture of, okay, let me live here till I get tired and then relocate, do you think we would really have housing deficits as such, since it's not a quest to own a house, but it's actually the quest to have accommodation?
The first question you asked, the answer is yes. Must we all own a house? Yes.
But provided you have somewhere to live, even if it's rented, must you be the owner of the house?
Okay, I will take that and add to the question is, must we all own a house? Yes. Whether the house is my own house or a rented apartment, is my house while I live in it.
Okay.
Now, if we did strengthen mortgage financing, like you just mentioned in developed countries, you don't need to own in that sense of status thing.
Okay.
You did own it in transaction, and you own it as an investment.
Okay.
Housing ownership are investments, not just status thing. So you may have defrayed portions of repaying the housing loan after some time. If you want to realize your investment so far, why not? At any point in time, you can get out. That is it. The question is, do you even have that window of investing in a house? Now, let's add to it. Housing is a status thing in this country, different from what it is less than what it is in the West. That is in the Western world, I mean.
Okay.
Now, because it's a status thing, owning my house is what makes me a man,
okay.
quote, and in quote, in Nigeria. And the irony is, because I can't come up with all of the money to own a house once, then there is pressure. That's the one we're talking about. So if mortgage financing come on, and I can take on a mortgage finance to own my house, repay over time, and when I want to be out, I realize it, take back my equity, and the financier takes, everything is good to go. So yes, every adult male, every adult female need a decent house to live in. That's part of the criteria for good living.
Okay, in Nigeria.
Everywhere in the world, not just Nigeria.
Okay, I want to hear from Dinah if she shares that view. And then we'll come back to the issue of mortgage financing, because according to World Bank report in 2015, it said that mortgage financing in Nigeria is almost negligible. As of 2015, it was its contribution to Nigeria's GDP was put at 0.5%. So, Dinah, do you agree that everyone should own a house? Should it be you owning a house or having a decent accommodation to live in? Which will make your business easy? Which will make the real estate sector easy? Building houses for people to own, which is expensive, or building houses for people to rent and live in?
Personally, I think it's a 50-50.
Okay.
Yes. Everyone should own a house.
Okay.
You know, the real estate sector is a thriving business. It's a wonderful business. Investing your money, you know, every young man, every young woman, even old, you know, investing in a house, it's a wonderful business. You never can tell how much you get from investing in a whether it be in a commercial property, be it a residential property. So I think everyone should own a house. And in this on
the business angle, which is more profitable?
It's more profitable to own a house.
To own?
Yes.
For the person who's buying or for the person who's selling? Like you being into the real estate business now, if you build to rent out or to lease out, and you build to sell, which brings you money quicker? Okay,
that's why I said it's a 50-50.
Okay.
Yes, building to lease out actually gains more money.
Okay.
But actually, I'm looking at as a real estate agent, I have the interest of my my clients at hand.
Okay.
So actually,
whether buyer or seller.
yes, whether buy, yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So actually, I would also want them to also buy a property to build for themselves. But also, on the other hand, buying to lease out actually makes the business boom faster.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right, now let's go back to the mortgage financing. Like I said earlier, that the World Bank report 2015 states that the mortgage financing contribution to Nigeria's GDP is 0.5. It's almost negligible. Why is that?
Yeah, it's that's true. As against the UK around 22%, the US around 17%, and so goes the number. That yes, mortgage financing is almost not there for us as a country for obvious reason. Like I said earlier, mortgage financing is a reflection, that is the price at which money is bought and sold to buy housing. It's a reflection of the inflation of in a country. For Nigeria, is about between 11 and 12%, and in those other countries is less than 2%, and so on. So if I put my money down to buy a house, if I finance a housing transaction, what it means that in 10 years time, if I put 1 million naira down, in 10 years time, because of inflation, that 1 million naira may be eroded by inflation. So I would want a quick one where whoever is buying my 1 million naira should be able to return the 1 million naira back to me with the interest. But the irony is that If the interest is too high, whoever is buying that mortgage finance will be unable to pay back. So you don't have so much money given by financial institutions to mortgage financing. They would rather give it to buying and selling, which is commercial. They would rather give it to some other sector like LPO financing, you know, just short
sectors where you can have the quick returns.
Quick return. So the contribution of the mortgage finance to GDP will certainly be a reflection of the volume. Yes. The volume is presently very negligible, almost not there. I know efforts are on to bring that up, but it's going to take a lot of policy re-engineering to get that to happen.
So let's talk about the economic benefits, Egbogbe. When everyone has good accommodation, when everyone is able to own houses, now, what would be the economic benefits?
The first is living in decent homes was part of the Millennium Development Goals, and this is part of the Sustainable Development Goals of the 2030. It is when you live in decent accommodation that you can contribute meaningfully to economic growth and national development. If you don't sleep well, you have a fear of being on the street, you are most likely going to be unable to contribute to economic development. So first and foremost, it would be just nice and economically okay for everyone to live in decent home. Beyond that is that owning a house is an investment, like I said earlier, beyond just a status symbol. You can't get it wrong if there aren't force majeure, that is natural mishap destroying your homes. So investing in a house would only go up. We call it a stock of wealth, where you might buy a land today for 1 million, build a house on it. Over time, the land becomes 4 million. The house that you build, that everything costs like 4 million, becomes like 10 million, 11 million and beyond. It means that you are better than when you entered. If you were paying rent of that all through and you never had it saved in your own house, you are most likely not going to, wasn't an investment in the first sense. So giving house to everyone, it's an investment. Then it's going to reduce as much as possible the pressure we presently have on people. In the West, a number of persons, I mean the Western world, people are not under any pressure to build a house, owning 10, 30 million to build a house. He knows that if he takes a mortgage financing, he's going to pay it for 30 years. So he pays it just as he goes on. So he's not
doesn't feel pressured.
He doesn't feel pressured. But what we have here is, the irony is that if I need to get a house of 15 million, I need to have the 15 million saved in 2 years. Whereas my per annum earning may just be 2 million. So where does the deficit come from? The difference come from? I dare say that for a number of people that own houses in Nigeria, they were under serious pressure. Little wonder why our life expectancy is arguably low. So it goes on and on that if we have our housing deficit met, we will have people living in good homes that can contribute meaningfully to economic development. It means our individual investment will get higher. It means our country will get better. It means that the housing sector, like we said earlier, will contribute more to the GDP, and on and on. It's the benefits are, inexhaustive.
Okay. Now, talking about the housing sector contributing more, presently it contributes just 3% to the GDP. Now,
less than 1%.
No, we're talking about mortgage financing, contributing 0.5%. Now, the housing sector contributes 3% to GDP. So, Dinah, now what do you recommend that government address so that the housing sector can do more and also contributes more?
Okay, as regards the housing deficits in Nigeria, I think the government should should check the deficiencies, the things that it's, personally, I think they've been working on this. The Nigerian economy has been working on this, but I don't think they've been doing so much. They've not been slashed. They've not been doing everything to check out these deficiencies. So personally, I think they should check the deficiencies and try to make provisions for the high population that we have in this country.
Now, what specifically would you recommend?
Okay, personally, okay, I want to
know the challenges that you face, or those of you in that sector face. So what would you recommend specifically that government do? Okay,
I think they should, in the area of funding,
okay,
they should raise funding.
Okay.
You know, checking the, like I said, the high population in this country. They should raise funding for that aspect. Yes, okay. that is what I think.
All right, so if I go back to you now, for the 1 million housing units that President Muhammadu Buhari has promised to build annually, now what do you think they should do so to be all inclusive? The beneficiaries will just come from every area and more people can key into this and benefit.
First, we would like to see what are the criteria for assessing the mortgage finance that will be put side by side. I know now there's a refinancing, Nigeria, mortgage refinancing company. Now it's to look at pre-qualifying people. So it shouldn't just be, we should be cut across. It shouldn't just be government workers or federal government workers. But I know basically a sizable portion of those who assess those housing will be those who contribute, for instance, to the federal mortgage. Beyond that is that there are private sector people who also fall into stable earnings group that will qualify. There are also those who can do, straight refinancing on their own houses already to be able to assess it. It cuts across. And beyond that is to begin to look at real retail housing units. They're not expensive houses.
Okay.
10 million house, 15 million house is considered expensive for more than 60 million less, earning people.
So it should be affordable housing.
That's what we should be looking at.
Okay. All right. That's it on the show today. We've talked extensively about addressing the housing deficit in Nigeria that is fast rising. Okay, I want to end by saying this, that government can do so much more by addressing also the ecological problems that we have. Some areas now, they have land available maybe because of gully erosion and some other issues that have made those areas inhabitable. You find some persons who even own houses there have abandoned their houses, and right now they are looking for ways to have houses elsewhere. So if government can come into that area and make sure that at least our environment is good and habitable for us, I think if there is more land available in certain areas, it will bring down the prices of land. But when we have good land in just limited area, that will again make the prices to go up. So thank you so much, Eboigbe, for coming on the show. Thank you so much, Diana.
Thank you very much for having me.
And that's it. I am Blessing Aichi. Until next week, enjoy your weekend.